Appreciate everyone for joining us for Coach Franklin's weekly press conference. We'll get started with an opening statement from Coach, and then we'll open up for questions.
Yeah, so just a couple quick notes. Like always, appreciate you guys coming out and covering Penn State football. This Saturday is our annual Thon game. We're thrilled to welcome the Four Diamonds families to Happy Valley this weekend, which will be great. Thon is the largest student-run philanthropy in the world and continues to enhance lives of children and family impacted by childhood cancer. Something's been passionate, in our program and our trips to Hershey Children's Hospital, as well as obviously the university for a very, very long time. Just some facts on Thon. Started in 1973, raised over $254 million for its beneficiary, Four Diamonds at Penn State Children's Hospital, which is obviously phenomenal. This past year raised over $17 million. So tremendous thing about Penn State and our partnership there. And when you kind of do a quick recap on the Nevada game, the statistics that really jump out to you is obviously the turnover battle and 16 points off of turnovers. That was huge. The explosive play battle, we won that, although we did not feel like we met our goal on offense. But we won the statistic overall. Third down battle, we won. Sack battle, we won. Drive start battle, we won. After the game, I think I said that we won the penalty battle. We did not. And then middle eight was significant, being able to get that 2-minute drive before the half for a number of reasons, not just for the game and for points, but also to get some work in 2-minute drives. We had all 3 timeouts available at the end of the first half and end of the second half, which was a real positive for us as well. I think you guys saw the game winners that we already announced, so I don't need to review that again. But just some overall thoughts. I was pleased with an early season game and how clean things were and how organized we were. We had no issues that you see a ton of, early games in the season with college football programs where they're burning timeouts, those types of things, substitution issues. We didn't really have any of those. We did not have a delay game except for the last one, which was frustrating. But all those things, I was pleased. I thought we started fast on offense and defense. Creating turnovers obviously was big. Opening drive, a 13-play drive for a touchdown, was significant. I thought our special teams were excellent when you take the kickoff return by King Mack that was blocked extremely well, plus 4 for 4 on field goals. And then just really cool to see some guys that had season-ending injuries last year that came out and played really well, whether that's Cam Wallace or whether that's Rappleyea or whether that's Keon, Wylie or Alonzo Ford, guys that missed the year with season-long injuries. And we had some other guys as well with those guys I thought really flashed and did some good things. We played 73 guys in the game. Ton of value in that, and not only 73 guys, but a lot of those guys played 20 or more reps. So really good. Opportunities for growth in that game. The standard is the standard. You hate that. The entire game we'd given up a field goal, and we hate that. We gave up a touchdown late in the game. But overall, again, those reps will be really important for us and valuable. Finishing drives on offense, kicked too many field goals, which I think I got that question afterwards, which was a fair question. I think Rich asked that question. More than anything, I mean, you look at the first, one of the drives where the first play of the drive, we're running outside zone and we don't block the 3 technique and we get a tackle for loss. So now you're off schedule and things like that. So that's what I think we still got to get cleaned up. Is we had some missed assignments and things like that that made the game more difficult than it needed to be. So we need to get those things fixed up. But to Rich's point, that's really what happened is we'd get off schedule, somebody blow an assignment, we'd get a tackle for loss or a zero gain play, and now we're kind of behind the sticks and weren't able to overcome that. Same thing, situational football. Most of them were really good. The 4-minute situation on offense where we went for it on fourth down to try to end the game on our terms and get those guys some more reps. The opposite of that is now we put our defense in a tough spot with a short field, but it was still an opportunity for those defensive guys to go out there and get reps and play well. We're not able to finish that the way we wanted to and should have. When you talk about penalties for us, the penalties that I really focus on are the pre-snap penalties and the post-whistle penalties, which to me, they're focus penalties. The pre-snap and the post-whistle penalties are selfish penalties, where you're getting unsportsmanlike conduct or something like that. We had 2 of those pre-snap penalties. So overall, pretty good. When we get into FIU, I've known Coach Simmons for a long time, got a ton of respect for him, and the program. Obviously, he was at Duke most recently with Manny, but is going to do a really good job. Is from Florida originally. He's a really good fit, had been the head coach at Florida A&M before going with Manny to Duke, and then taking over to FIU program. Obviously, it's still early in the season, so we're still getting to know them. It's still early in the week. We're getting to know them. They do have 5 returners starting. We have 20 starters returning. They have 25 transfer portal players on the roster. You look at how it's broken down, 12 on offense, 10 on defense, and then 3 on special teams. So, it should be a good game, and we're looking forward to the opportunity. When you kind of break down some of their staff, Nick Coleman is their offensive coordinator. Most recently was at UAB as the quarterbacks coach, and has been at South Carolina and a number of other players as well. They're a multiple personnel team, mainly 11 and 12 personnel. You'll see the traditional inside zone, outside zone gap schemes, things like that. They did a really nice job, obviously, in their first game. Put up some pretty good stats and did some pretty good things, so there'll be some challenges there. Their quarterback number 1, Keon Jenkins, kid out of Miami, is the preseason offensive player of the year in their conference. And then their running back number 5, Kejon Owens, big back, 210 pounds out of Miami. Again, they're expecting big things from him this year. And then Javon DeWitt is a guy that I've known for a long time as well. He's got a pretty extensive background, whether it's been at North Carolina or Nebraska or at UCF. He's been a bunch of places. Been a special teams coordinator or a defensive coordinator for most of his career. Again, multiple defensive front. They'll mix from both 4 down to 3 down. And obviously the new thing that everybody's doing right now is 5 down package, which showed up against us last week as well. They'll mix the coverages up between middle of field open and middle of field closed looks. We've been impressed with linebacker number 0, Johnny Chaney, who's a Colorado transfer. DB number 2, Brian Blades. I think everybody knows that name. Very familiar and legendary family in the Fort Lauderdale area, which is where he's from. And then D lineman number 44, Keegan Davis, another Florida kid. And D lineman number 25, Kenton Simmons, who's a junior college transfer. He's a big kid, 6'5", 260 pounds. He's from Mississippi. And then on special teams, Kenneth Gilstrap. Again, UAB, Middle Tennessee. I think that's where their background, Wylie had some time at Middle Tennessee as well, so I think that's where their background comes from. We'll be running the special teams. Their kick returner, Saquon Jean-Pierre, kid from Fort Lauderdale. Again, Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Year preseason. And then punter number 6, Trey Wilhoit. He's a Florida A&M transfer. So still getting to know these guys, not only because, it's early in the season, but also just kind of getting into our rhythm of how we get evaluating people. It's Monday. and early in the season, so we only got really one game from this year, new staff, a lot of things that factor into it. So we're going to have to be prepared just like we were last week, offense, defense, and special teams. There's going to be things that show up in this game that we can't prepare for or anticipate based on film breakdown and study. But we need to take a significant step compared to where we were last week. So open up the questions.
Let's go to Rich Garcello, followed by Neil Riddell.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Hey, Rich. Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. James, can you please evaluate the play of your quarterbacks, Drew and Grunk specifically, and the passing game in general?
Yeah, I thought Drew played how I would expect him to play. He was consistent, made some big-time throws. He made a couple out-breaking throws that very few college players and a handful of NFL quarterbacks can make. Wide field outs that he threw on time into some contested coverage as well. But I thought he played well. He made plays with his feet. He extended plays. He had that one run, like I mentioned after the game, that I would have liked him to get down a little bit faster. He took too many shots on that. But overall, I was pleased. Played very, very clean. Missed the first touchdown throw to Hudson, which I would have loved to have been able to hit that throw. But besides that, I thought played very clean. Grunk came in and played well. I was very impressed with Grunk and his performance. He just looked. I actually thought he played in the game better than he's practiced at times. In terms of he wasn't holding on to the ball, he was decisive. When he did get pressure, he was able to step up in the pocket and find outlets quickly and get the ball out of his hand. The one to Cam Wallace obviously was a highlight play where he hurdled him, and then the outlet throw to Rappleyea, which also was a big play. So I was very pleased with how he played and how he managed the game overall. And then obviously to go down on a drive and score a touchdown and pick it up with his feet, that was positive as well. So I was pleased with them. And then the passing game in general, that was an emphasis kind of going into the season. That was an emphasis in game one. We'd like to get Ross a little bit more involved. Like I mentioned to you guys earlier, he had missed some time this summer. But we'd like to get him involved. But I thought Hudson and Pena, really played well. I thought, again, the tight end committee, I thought did some really good things. And then once again, getting our running backs involved in the passing game too. So overall good. I think if you combine Grunk and Drew's numbers together, pretty good numbers. Completion percentage wise, touchdown to interception ratio, yardage, all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I'd probably say is just like to get a few more chunk plays and get the ball down the field a little bit more from an explosive standpoint.
Let's go to Neil Riddell, followed by Bob Flounders.
Hey, James, happy Labor Day.
You too, Neil.
Thank you. Hey, a lot of big games over the weekend. I wondered if you could take us into your basement. Do you watch them? Do you take notes? What's your approach when you some potential future opponents?
Yeah, like everybody else, by the time I get out of here after the press conference, shower, get all my stuff together, get back to the office, then get home. It's usually a little bit later than most. But then I go in, I make small talk with friends and family in the kitchen for about 13 minutes. And I tell everybody I'm going down the basement. I'm not trying to be antisocial, but I want to go down the basement and watch games. And if they want to come down, great. But they all know not to come down and start peppering me with questions. And then I sit sometimes in my boxers and a T-shirt and watch games and try to relax and enjoy it. But to your point, Neil, we don't watch the game like normal people. The players are sending me, hey, Coach, did you see that situation? It's a 2-minute situation at the end of the game, and they didn't use their timeouts effectively, or 4-minute and, the runner ran out of bounds or whatever it is. So we're constantly shooting those things to me and Jevin. The staff's doing the same thing so we can watch those things on Sunday after we get through our film, just constantly using examples like that to teach situational football and awareness. Obviously, sometimes there's people that are going to be on our schedule, and depending on who they're playing, those games can be attractive to watch as well. But yeah, that's kind of usually the process. But usually I try to get to bed at a fairly reasonable hour because I'm not a night guy anyway. I'm more of a morning guy, and I usually come into the office pretty early on Sunday to get started on grading the last film before I watch it with both the offense, defense, and special teams in separate units, and then on to the next opponent. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for. It was a long one. I apologize for the visual of me sitting on my boxers in my basement, but that's usually what it looks like. Neil, I don't know if you heard that, but Brennan said you're probably in your boxers right now. Business from the waist up. And,
Who gave him a speaking part?
Yeah.
Let's go to Bob Flounders, followed by Frank Bodani.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Bob. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. James, you said, I think, a little bit ago that you had a chance to play, I think, 73 players, and I know that it's kind of been a priority to kind of develop depth along the defensive line once you get past guys like Zane and obviously Nittany and Ford, guys like that. What did you think of your D-line depth guys inside and outside, and how much do you think they're going to gain from kind of those extended reps they got?
Yeah, so obviously not having Zariah, we were hopeful to have Zariah. I will say this, we got to the game and Zariah was excited and wanted to play, and we kind of held him just because at that point he hadn't practiced enough and didn't think that was the right thing to do for him or us. But my point is that I think that explains to you how close he is, right? He's close to being back, and that'll be significant getting him back. You guys know how I feel about him. I thought Chaz Coleman didn't play as many reps as I said, but still played a bunch. I think he played over 20 reps. Flash did some really good things. I think he's got a very, very bright future. He was kind of walking in with me in the tunnel and was like, well, I'm glad I got that over with because I was nervous, and I don't have to be nervous anymore. I thought Kamaju, I thought, did some really good things as well. I think he's got a bright future. We're excited about him. Hopefully we'll get Mason. We'll get Mason Robinson back. He's an older player that we'd be excited about getting him back into the rotation too, and I think there's a chance of that. I thought Ty Blanding showed up a couple times, showing his athleticism and how explosive he is. He's a guy that we're really excited about. He's 295 pounds. He's really fast. He's really athletic. I think he'll just continue to get better and better as the year goes on. I think we have found a home for Eni White. We're pretty athletic at defensive end, and so is Eni. But, he's 276 pounds right now, and he's really not even trying to gain weight. It's just kind of naturally where he is. I think if we can get him up to 285 by midseason, he's going to be a really nice guy for us to factor into that rotation. You guys know we've been high on Xavier Gilliam, and he played the way we expect him to play. Owen Wafel's a young, exciting player for us as well that played a decent amount on Saturday, and we're going to need that role to grow. And then Harvey and Malachi at defensive end. So we're young, but these first 3 games are going to be critical in terms of getting these guys as many reps as we can and then continue to pour into them. But I think once you kind of get into, game 4, game 5, they're no longer young players. They're guys that have played significant reps in college, and we need them to act like it. So, what you need is both, right? You need a lot of these young guys to grow up and grow up quickly, but you also need, some of these vets that we're dependent on. Hopefully they can get back into the rotation. specifically at defensive end. That will help.
Let's go to Frank Bodani, followed by Mark Wogenrich.
Hey, James, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
How you doing, Frank?
Okay, great. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well this afternoon.
You too, buddy.
Who is your starting punter right now? And could you talk a little bit about the competition between Wylie and Gabe? I mean, Wylie being a multi-year starter, Gabe always being there, but can you talk about that, how close that is, just the competition?
Yeah, so the fact that you guys didn't get to see a punter is awesome, right? I think that speaks to how well the offense was able to play. That's unusual. I don't care who you're playing to not have a punt in a game. But I also think, your question about, Gabe is a good one. Gabe's our starting punter right now. I think it's a really good example, a competition, very similar to safety. I don't think, before the year started, there was a whole lot of people talking about Belgrave Shorter outside of the Lash building. And he earned the starting job, and Gabe, did the same thing at punter. And, we've been very, very happy with Wylie and got a ton of respect for him. And he's going to end up playing for us this year and playing well. But Gabe's, he's special. He's the closest thing to Jordan Stout that we've had here. His A-ball was always probably maybe as good as we've ever had here, his A-ball. But like a lot of these guys, he just wasn't consistent enough. And he just had a phenomenal camp, not only in kickoff and punting, but also field goal. He was really good in the field goal. He was competing for the starting job as a field goal kicker as well. Made a 62-yarder in practice in the stadium with the whole team around him watching, and probably would have been good from 65 or 66. But he's always, as you guys know, he's always had a big, strong leg, and he just put it all together this summer. And was consistent, and it was pretty obvious to everybody. And I think Wylie had a really good camp. It's just Gabe was more consistent, with his A-ball, and his A-ball is as good as anybody in the country.
Let's go to Mark Wogenrich, followed by Mike Gross.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Doing well, thanks.
Were those Snoopy things always up on the wall, or is that new?
Yes, they are. They're my wife's.
They've always been there?
They've always been there.
All right.
Why? I want to ask about the 2-point conversion. Why did you try that play at that time in the game, and then how did you assess that on Sunday?
Yeah, it was not well executed whatsoever. How we coached it, how it was ran. They didn't have enough numbers to cover the O-lineman and the eligible to the field, which is why when we snap it and don't throw it over there, we're in a really tough situation now. So it was not coached well. It was not executed well. But obviously you'd like to get some of these things on film that people have to spend time working on. You'd be amazed how much time you spend working on things like that. All the different alignments that you can line up in, and you got to be sound or people can take advantage of it. So that was a miss on our part and on my part. We didn't do a good enough job of coaching that, of teaching that, and then on Saturday of executing that. But the rationale is to get some of those things on tape so that our future opponents have to deal with being prepared for it and taking time out of defense or special teams to work on that.
Let's go to Mike Gross, and then we'll go to Mark.
Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you, man?
Good, thanks. I have a small clarification about your. I have a regular question, but also a small clarification about your response to Neil's question. You said you spend 13 minutes in the kitchen talking to people. I thought that was a very specific figure. Is that something you arrived at, or were you just estimating 13 minutes?
Just estimating, but my wife also has like a countdown clock. She hits it as soon as I walk in. But no, just it can be longer, it can be shorter. But my point is the last thing I want to do is come home and get hammered for questions from family and friends about why we did this, how we did that. I said that'll be for Mike Gross on Monday. I don't necessarily need that in my kitchen after the game.
Okay, and then the other thing is running the ball on Saturday. People think you're playing Nevada, but this offensive line, these backs, you're going to just knock them over and run the ball like crazy. And 3.8 yards a carry. I'm wondering what do you attribute that, if anything? And also these 5-man fronts that you referred to earlier, is that something that takes some getting used to?
Yeah, it's very similar to the stuff that I talked about, right? That they're going to get an extra hat in the box. They're playing some 5 down front. Again, you're talking about more people to stop the run game or create one-on-one pass rushes and pass protection. But yeah, I think Mike, if you're the defensive coordinator at Nevada and you're coming into Penn State, the proven commodity is what? Nick and Fat and the running game. So everybody's model is going to be, we got to do everything we possibly can, not allow the obvious choice to beat us and force the wide receivers that we have not seen yet a whole lot and the passing game to beat you. So it's a combination, I think, philosophically, what most people are going to do until we show it consistently that we can beat you doing both things. So I think it's a combination of both. I think it's philosophically what people are going to do to try to stop us, and then also us emphasizing an area that we need to improve on as well. I think it's a combination of both. But we have to make sure that we're balanced enough that we can run or pass by the time we get to the midpoint of the season, that we can run or pass to win games, because the best teams, that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to take one of these things away. You got to figure out what those things are as early as you can in the game, and then take what the defense gives, because they're always giving something, right? They can't take away everything. That's where those wide field outs and things like that we were throwing on Saturday, most college defenses are going to give you the access to the field, because most college quarterbacks can't make that throw.
Please raise your hand and we'll take a mic to you. Let's start with Mark.
James, thanks for your time.
You too.
Were there any guys who kind of flashed you in that last 10, 12 minutes of the game? I know you talked about how important these first 3 games are for some of your younger guys and maybe veterans who are kind of fight their way back into the lineup.
Yeah, I think the ones that just jump out to me right away is Grunk, is Cam Wallace, specifically magnified coming off an injury, Rapp, coming off an injury. Those are probably the guys that jumped out to me the most. I thought some of the young defensive linemen that we've already talked about, I think they flashed as well. And then I think we also have just a number of guys that we're going to need to step up, into more significant roles. Darius Dixon flashed on the kickoff return, where he came down and knife tackled, which was a thing of beauty. So he's a guy on a positive standpoint that flashed as well. So a number of guys, but those are the guys that probably jump out the most to me, when you ask me that question.
Audrey?
Hey, James, how are
Audrey.
you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. When you have a young quarterback like Grunk, obviously the game reps you mentioned, he looked better than you thought maybe he did in practice. What's the value of that? How do you maybe try and quantify that, and what do you want to see him do next as he continues in his development?
What is the value in what?
The game reps that he's getting out there, because you said he looked better in practice, and I know sometimes guys look better, in the live reps.
Yeah, and again, it's not that he hasn't practiced well. Him and Jackson have practiced well, but there's been times where I question quarterbacks' reps not being real reps, because they know they can't get hit. So how much do you make the quarterbacks live in practice? the backup quarterback so you can get a true evaluation on them, but not do it too much that you're putting those guys at risk, right? So it's just sometimes it's harder to evaluate the quarterback position because of all the positions, they get less of that. So being able to do it in a game and show that he'd be able to work through progressions, make decisive decisions, be accurate with the ball, protect the ball, and also make some plays with his feet, even if it's just extending plays, stepping up in the pocket, and how quickly. The thing I probably love the most is how quickly him and Drew found outlets and got rid of the ball. Where that, to me, that's one of the biggest things for young quarterbacks is when you get pressure, do you know where your outlets are like the back of your hand? Boom. And you step up and you go to the outlet right now. And then if the outlet's covered, then you take off and run. I thought he did a phenomenal job at that. So, yeah, I think that the biggest value in it is this isn't like make-believe football where you're back there in the pocket patting the ball, waiting for something to come open because the D linemen, if they come anywhere near you, get their heads ripped off at practice. Like it's a fairy tale world. So it's really valuable to get those live reps in practice that we don't do very often. And then that's where the game reps are so important because they're truly out there playing the game and managing the game, and you're going to get a true evaluation. So really valuable. Hopefully we'll be able to get them more time this week and hopefully all season long.
Over here on the right, Max.
Hey, James.
Max,
could you
what is the logo on that hat?
It's the Yomiuri Giants. It's a Japanese baseball team.
It's the what again?
Yomiuri Giants. They're
Gotcha.
in Tokyo. Kind of like Japan, the Yankees.
Have you been there?
Twice, actually.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Could you expand a little bit on RB3, the depth there? You've mentioned Cam a couple of times. I think he and Corey played equal snaps, and we didn't see Quentin. Seemed like Cam flashed a little bit. Can you analyze what you saw there?
Yeah, Quentin, the only reason you didn't see Quentin on offense or special teams is he had tweaked something and was out, almost 2 weeks of training camp and really just got cleared right before we got into game week. So that's the only reason why you didn't see him. But, yeah, I think it's still a battle, with those guys, whether that is Cam, Corey, Quentin. I think you could put Tyke and Jabri in there as well. Jabri obviously, just got here in the summer, so his situation's a little bit different. But that's going to be an ongoing battle. But it sure was nice to see Cam. Right, first time he touches the ball, he makes a big time play. I'm very proud of him because there's a physical, mental, and emotional aspect from coming back from that type of injury. To see him play well. So it was pretty cool. Back to my basement, we were all talking about him, and the run he had and how excited everybody was for him. So I called him and I told him that and I had him on speakerphone, and everybody in my basement started yelling for him, and he was feeling really good about himself. And then I just said, well, relax. They're not going to induct you into the College Football Hall of Fame after one catch. So, everybody kind of laughed, but I know that felt really good for him, and I was very, very proud of him, happy for him. So, but that battle will continue, and again, it's kind of like we talked about Gabe and other guys. It's about consistency. It's consistency in pass protecting and protecting our quarterbacks, knowing your assignments, the correct footwork, so it times up right with the quarterbacks in the run game. Chasing your landmarks and be disciplined. It's not high school where you just stick your foot in the ground and run the daylight. You got to set up blocks. You got to press the line of scrimmage. So it's the consistency of all that. And then, like all these guys, then when you get the ball in your hand, you got to be responsible to make that one guy miss. There's a lot of guys that can get the yards that the scheme or the O-line provided. Now, what do you do in terms of breaking tackles and making people miss to put your stamp on the running game?
Over here on the right, Tyler.
Hey, James.
Hey, Tyler.
I was going to ask about Cam, but I'll circle back to two other guys who got back after long injuries. With what you saw from Andrew and Keon with some extended action, where do you see them respectively trending at their positions?
Yeah, so Keon is one of the better athletes that we have, is super strong in the weight room, is explosive and is fast. And, there's a part with Keon, I just want him to let it rip. Like, that shows up in games, shows up at practice at times where I think he's trying to be right rather than just going and playing. But he's got all the ability in the world, and I think we're going to have that moment where it all clicks and everything comes together for him. And we need that. We need that from him. And then when you just talk about everybody talks about Luke Reynolds and deservedly so, but you probably wouldn't have saw Luke Reynolds last year if Rapp didn't get hurt, because we probably would have redshirted Luke. So here we are again with three really good tight ends. I think you can make the argument Khalil's the most complete tight end in the country, in my opinion, and I'm biased. I get that. But again, we got three really good tight ends that we think we can win with and can be a problem for people. Rapp, you saw obviously the obvious plays that he made in the passing game, but he's a physical guy as well. So we're excited about that room again. They've done a great job. Ty Howell's done a really good job, and obviously, Andy loves the creativity that we can have with that position too, because that's the strength of real tight ends, right? They can line up as fullbacks. I just heard everybody, Neil Cornrich and everybody going crazy, some of the fans. But they can line up as fullbacks. They can line up as traditional tight ends in line. They can line up in the hip. And then they can line up as slot receivers. And our guys have the ability to do all those things, which become difficult on defenses to figure out how you're going to defend these guys. If you're just a big wideout, then they play nickel and treat you as such.
In the back left, Caleb.
Hey, James, how are
Hey,
you?
Caleb. Good, man.
Curious, you touched on the 3 field goals in the red zone, but I'm curious kind of what that looks like this week. How do you kind of attack that both in film and then on the practice field?
The field goals?
Kind of like translating them into touchdowns.
Okay.
Kind of
Okay.
them.
You left that part out, so I didn't know what you meant. I think it's kind of what I referenced earlier, right? It's we can't not block the 3 technique on outside zone and get a tackle for loss. We got to be more consistent. I talked a bunch to you guys about having 7 offensive linemen that we view as starters. And all those guys have got to play like that. They gotta show that they warrant being on the field. And then, we just got to be a little bit more consistent with everything we do. And yeah, can you overcome long yardage situations? Yeah, but the best offenses don't even get to third down. They're picking up most of their first downs on first and second down. So, staying out of negative yardage plays is how we'll be more efficient and more effective, not only in the red zone but across the field. There was just that when you talk about sloppy football, and you go back and you kind of look at drops, you look at tackles for loss or even 0 yardage plays. We just had too many of those in the game to allow us to go where we want to go and to play the way we want to play. So that's what we're going to have to do to be more efficient when it comes to touchdowns and not kicking field goals.
Front left, Mike.
Hi, James. I don't think we got your public thoughts on this. The SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule, and then I think this has been overlooked, the 10th mandatory game against a Power 4 or Notre Dame, same thing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, as these types of things, I'm happy to talk about in the offseason. I really don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this on a game week when I'm not when I'm not really focused on it or spending much time on it, but I can give you a response that I've given in the past that's consistent. I think I've said this for probably the last 10 years, is everybody should play the same number of games. Everybody should have the same rules in terms of types of opponents that we play. Everybody should have conference championship games. There should be consistency. Again, if you want to try to put together the best 12 teams for a playoff, it's hard to do that when you have a committee getting together and trying to compare 8 conference games to 9 conference games to conference championship games, and one team loses a conference championship game, another team doesn't even have to play in one. It's just problematic. And I think when I say this, sometimes people think I'm like attacking certain conferences or attacking certain schools. I'm not. I just think there should be consistency. And if you're in Power 4 football, everybody should be playing a similar schedule so that the committee can get together at the end of the season and compare apples to apples as much as we possibly can. And the reality is we don't have a commissioner of college football, so that's where the commissioners of the Power 4 conferences, specifically the Big Ten and the SEC, need to get together and come up with what's in the best interest of college football and what's in the best interest of the student athletes and what's in the best interest of the fans. And then you won't have to worry about all these different things when it comes to scheduling, because everybody's going to kind of have the same parameters. And I think that's the right thing to do for all the parties that we just talked about.
Time for one more. Way in the back. T. Frank.
Hey, James. How
Hey,
you doing?
Frank.
Apologize if you've covered this, but one of the things that noticeable with your offense on Saturday was the use of tempo. And, sometimes after big plays or trying to use that as a weapon. So I just wanted to get your assessment of how your offense operated in those situations when they were trying to go quickly.
Yeah, so a couple things. It's always going to be a part of what we do because it's one of the weapons that we want to use. Personnel is a weapon. Formations, motion, shifts, tempo, they're all weapons that we want to try to use. I would say in that game you probably saw maybe a little bit more, and that was me getting on the headset and at halftime talking about using tempo because they were smart. They were making sure that when they were on offense, they were never snapping the ball with less than 5 seconds to go on the clock. So they were trying to shorten the game as much as they possibly could. So I wanted to make sure that we had a chance on offense to get as many reps, and we want to be good, in tempo too. So it was an opportunity to really work on both. And I thought we did a good job with it, except for obviously the bad snap down in the red zone that I think Drew still should have caught it. And I think if you asked Drew would say that's on me. And if you asked Dawkins would say that was on me. And I think we probably walk in on the play that we have called. But overall, good. We're probably a little bit heavy in it for the reason I stated.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.